All right, welcome to another episode of It's a Wonderful Life. I'm John Devereaux.
Brittany Devereaux.
And this is episode 4, Tubie, what is it?
Tubie journey.
Our Tubie journey. I was going to say to be or not to be, just a little play on words, but our Tubie journey sounds a little bit more fitting. So everybody is pretty much aware that JJ has a G-tube, which is commonly known as a feeding tube. So just to kind of back it up, we talked about this in episode 1, I believe, when we were looking at our NICU journey, that JJ had a G-tube placed because, well, he was originally eating by mouth.
Yeah.
So he was taking the bottle, but he was aspirating.
Yeah.
So,
and as soon as the babies aspirate, they cold turkey them. They cut them off immediately because it can do damage to the lungs. And JJ was said to already have like chronic lung when he was born. So they stop them from the feeds by mouth until they can kind of see, try it again maybe at another time, I think is what they do.
Yeah, they give you like a swallow study to see, to make sure that you're able to safely swallow liquids at different consistencies. So we decided to get the G-tube placed because we can either have, like, I believe, either kit the NG tube or the feeding tube, and it was recommended to us to go with the feeding tube, the G-tube, I should say.
Yeah.
So the G-tube we got placed on April 25th of 2016, so this is a little bit over 3 months after we've already been in the NICU, and that was one of the things that was going to allow us to be able to go home, because we eventually went home 10 days later.
Yeah, and they kind of give you the option of kind of like, do you want to work on feeding with your child at the hospital or get the G-tube? So, of course, anybody that's been there as long as we were, we'll get the G-tube and we'll work on that later.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but like when we got that G-tube placed, I believe we felt that this was going to be a short-term thing.
Definitely.
It was never intended to be something that he has even to this day, and he's 4 years old now.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that allowed us to go home. So, we were kind of grateful for that. So when we got home, like, and it's kind of like two parts, because when we went home from the NICU and we had all the other machines, the G-tube was just an added, complication, because he was getting what we call bolus feeds during the day, and I'll have a video playing that kind of shows an example of what bolus feeds are. But we were doing that 5 to 6 times per day, so he would eat like every 2.5, 3 hours.
It felt like as soon as you stopped, it was time to start again. That's what it felt like.
Exactly, because it will go for like 45 minutes to an hour. So, and I mean, you were at home with him most of the time during the day, so that was something that you were kind of spearheading.
Yeah. I don't remember, I guess, it a whole lot, the bolus feeds. I just remember a few times doing it, and obviously the time we did it, and I noticed JJ's belly, which was, we talked about in episode
3.
Is that 3?
No, 2.
2, when he was in the PICU, or in the surgery unit, when he had to get his surgery done.
Well, the reason why is because we only did the boluses when we came home from the NICU. So when we came home from the PICU that second time, he was on straight continuous feeds.
Yeah.
So through our feeding pump. So
it was a whole lot.
Oh yeah. I mean, the second time when we came home, and I guess just picking up where we left off in the previous episode, was a lot easier because we didn't have all those other machines, and he had that set schedule.
And we could go places and just hook the machine up versus you sitting there holding it, waiting for gravity to take its course.
Yeah.
We could do a lot more and be a little more mobile with it.
Right. So with the G-tube comes a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think of the emoji. Y'all don't know the emoji on your phones like this?
And I'm going to put that up too. I'm going to put it over your face.
That's what I think I want to think about the G-tube.
Yeah, so with the G-tube, there was a lot of maintenance that came with it. So we would have to clean it multiple times a day. You just have to make sure that it's clean, because it can get infected, and we definitely didn't want it to go back to the hospital.
No, whatever we had to do.
So with that cleaning process, we had to use sterile water. We kept a gauze pad around it to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the area stayed dry because you didn't want any bacteria.
Picking up any leakage, any milk leakage or anything. Yeah.
And then just changing that constantly. So sometimes we would be doing it after, you know, one or the two feeds. So, you know, at least 3 or 4 times a day, we were actually changing that G-tube and cleaning that site, making sure that we were keeping it clean and free from any infection. So, like, I'll have some pictures up with him with the gauze pads, and, you know, those were kind of bulky. Eventually, because, you know, we wanted to be a little stylish with JJ, as you guys
We
saw.
always got to put some umph on,
Yeah.
on everything.
Yeah, I figure if we're going to have it, might as well at least look good while it's there.
Yeah.
So,
Dad spearheaded that.
yeah, so we ended up getting these little G2 pads, and I'll have a picture. I wish we could have just brought one out.
Yeah.
JJ's sleeping right now, though.
Supposed to be asleep. He not asleep.
So we would have like these little G2 pads with characters on it,
Yeah.
and it had a different type of material that was a little bit more absorbent and a little bit more durable than the gauze pads that we were using.
And softer, I'm sure, probably against the skin
Yes.
too. And these actually had snaps on them.
Yes.
So we have some that don't have snaps, but these ones, we used to just be able to put the gauze pad around it and just leave it, and it would be fine. But as time went, you know, and it getting a little bit looser, I think we were taping the gauze pads. So then when we got the G2 buttons pads, they have a little snap. So you put them around them, you snap them, and then, you know, later on we had to tape them down now because he's too active, and
Right.
G2 side is a lot looser than it was when he was not even a year old yet.
And I mean, coming across these little G2 pads, I found it in a Facebook group. And one of the things that we both did a lot of is, you know, tapping into these resources through Facebook. So some of the social groups that they have on there of kids who have G-tubes. And I remember seeing a kid and they had one of these little G-tube pads, and I believe it was like a Minnie Mouse one. So I was like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. Well, not the Minnie Mouse one for him, but like for whatever it was that he was interested in at the time, which was Paw Patrol. So I got on Etsy and found somebody who was selling them and got them a couple weeks later.
That's pretty cool. I was supposed to learn how to make them so I can make us a bunch of them, but it just kind of never happened.
Now, with that G-tube comes a lot of problems as well.
Fun time.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the main things is over time, and off a picture, you know, the inner lining of this, because it goes right into your stomach.
Right.
So the inner lining of it comes out, and I guess we didn't really talk about like what that G-tube actually is, like.
Oh, like where it's placed.
Yeah.
So they the procedure is done. I think it could be outpatient. Was it? Or I'm not sure. But they kept them. Obviously, we still in NICU. Kept them for a few more days or whatever. But when they place it, I think they bring the intestines like up to the stomach.
The intestines, the stomach.
The stomach up to like the surface of the skin, and then they, you know, make that incision and they make that, you know, hole right there. So when it's going right into the site on his
Hey, let
skin,
me go grab one really quick. Keep talking.
it's going right into his skin. It's connecting right to the tummy and going, you know, straight to the tummy. So it's pretty interesting, I guess, how they do that. You know, it's gifted hands as doctors, and especially pediatric ones, surgeons. Yeah. So Google it, kind of look it up, see what some look like and how, you know, how it works. It's really interesting, you know, the human body and how they figure out different things to do, you know, for people that, you know, need alternate ways to eat. There's always an alternate way to do something. So
Right. So this is an example of what's actually inside JJ right now. So this is the actual G-tube.
it's called they have different names. I think ours is called the Mickey. So there's different names for different types, as we learned as well.
So as Brittany was saying, what they do is they bring the stomach to the surface of the skin and they make that incision. This goes right into it, and then the way that we would keep it in place is you would inflate it.
So there's a little spout on the side, so nothing spills out of it. The syringe has to go in, and then you can push it in or out.
So with this little balloon, it keeps it from popping.
So that's
out.
the only thing that's keeping, and it's kind of like a latexy type of material, but that's the only thing that's keeping it in his belly when you really think about it. So it's not, you know, it's not bolted in there or anything. And later on, as we would learn, that little balloon would
Oh.
have little leaks in it, little slow leaks. So, you might be out cruising town or whatever, and you look back and JJ's shirt's soaking wet. So you're like, what the heck is going on?
Because if that G-tube comes out, and this would happen
Oh my
oftentimes
gosh.
after he would finish eating, all the contents of his stomach were just kind of pouring.
It's like a milk murder scene, is what it looks like. And if it happens when he's just eaten, so that is, it takes time for your body to digest the food. So it's not, normally when we eat, it's going down, it's taking the time, it's breaking down, it's going through, the intestines and different things. It's going straight to the source for JJ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take a little bit longer to actually break down and for him to digest.
Right.
So if the G tube comes out when he's like during a feed or have just finished, oh, it's like a spout. It just, and that's pretty much like his whole feed laying right there all over you and him and the floor or wherever you're at.
And it's happened to us so many
Oh my
times, too many times to count.
gosh.
But so that's one of the problems that can occur with like the G-tube. We can see that like this balloon could get deflated, and when this deflates, it just slides
pops
right
out.
out.
Yeah, it's nothing keeping it in there. So we've been out places before, which I always try to keep a backup. So we have a little backup with us. We have one like in his backpack wherever he goes to daycare or school or anything. But if you are not familiar with the area and the site, it looks a lot gross than what it actually is.
Yeah.
So I think I can remember with my parents that watched them one time, and we didn't even get that far. I think we were going back home or something. They were watching them.
Let's say that story because I have a story for that as well, but I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
But like some of the other problems, just dealing with the site itself, is you can also get what's called granulation that
we
occurs
got a lot of that
around
right
it.
now.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that we used early on was this granulation. His surgeon prescribed it for us, so we would get that, and we would have to put it on the site. So Brittany would take like a Q-tip.
Yeah, and it kind of had like a minty type of or menthol type of kind of like smell and then like feeling. So even though it's kind of like that lotion, when you put it on, when his skin is raw, that's that's his stomach. He wouldn't like that either, and this was the less aggressive
It was
one.
probably like the equivalent of like putting like Icy Hot on or something like that, where you just get a
Or
weird
like
sensation.
Vicks,
Yeah,
like Vicks, maybe the Vicks Vapor Rub or something like that, where if you're raw, it's gonna burn a little bit, and so he would not like that. And when he sees it coming, he's already like oh Lord, and you're sitting there, it's okay, JJ, and then he's wanting to mess with it because it's bothering him or whatever.
So and we would have to put that on. I think you only did that in the mornings and probably at nighttime, so we didn't do that too often.
Yeah, but that we tried to do that continuously so that it would like a more of a preventative measure as well.
So sometimes when the granulation would get really bad, we would have to take him to either his pediatrician there in Macomb or go to his surgeon, and they would have to apply silver nitrate, which essentially just burns all the granulation out. And JJ absolutely hated that.
Pissed.
And I can't blame him because that's a very painful.
We would just try to just hold him and just wait for it to subside and wait for it to kind of go away. But yeah, he be looking at us like what is y'all doing to me? And like, buddy, we trying to help you. We trying to get it better. So and then when we got more comfortable and when it was kind of a little more reoccurring, then we would get the silver nitrate sticks. They would give them to us, and then we would do it at home. So we did it at home a couple times.
I've never done it.
I did it every time?
Must have. I've never done that.
Oh, we'd have the little sticks, and they come in like a little packet, and you take one out and you do it. And if you need another one, you take the other one out. And so this is like a little Q-tip, a stick with a Q-tip on the end, and then it has the medicine within it. So as soon as you start touching the skin, like it's working because he knows it and he gets upset. So we had to do that a couple times, and we got to the point where we didn't want to do it anymore because, as we later learned too, that is the inner lining of his stomach.
That's what it was.
So your burning is not just skin that we want it to die off. It's part of his stomach, and you do it too much, it can be damaging. So we were just like, yeah, no.
So I'll have a picture up of what it is like, what it looks like right now, and that's going to be a picture of like part of his stomach coming out, and it doesn't bother him at all.
No, it's kind of sensitive because like when I wipe it now, sometimes he'll whine or he'll get like almost like ticklish, And I'm like, what are you doing? And I think it has nerves and stuff, I'm sure, so it's kind of sensitive.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I have these pictures up.
Aww.
Like something that's like really small that most people probably wouldn't think about, when you have a kid with a G-tube is finding clothes
Oh
for
my
them.
gosh, yes.
Because
there was so many things that I was supposed to do. I was supposed to make some clothes, sew some nice little holes. And,
Yeah.
well, I mean, when he was younger like that, too, babies, the onesies. He had so many onesies and little little romper outfits and stuff that we wanted to put on him. And it was always like, oh my gosh, where are we going? You had to do it before, too. So we would just get him connected, have his cord kind of hanging out, even if he wasn't feeding, and just tuck it, because trying to get all of that together while you're out and stuff was just like a no-go.
So as you guys will see in these pictures that I have up, you just see we just got that cord just dangling, and he's just connected, and that's
pretty much
him eating.
That's his pump back there on the pole.
I don't have that picture up yet.
Oh, my bad.
They'll see it in a second. But the other thing that we would do is, like when he would be sleeping overnight, like Brittany said, we couldn't put him in like those pajamas, not the onesies, but what were they called? Like the ones with the footies.
Oh, like the footsie pajamas. Footies, yeah.
So, I mean, because there was no way for that G-tube extension to escape.
Well, the button ones we could. You could do it in between, but the zip ones we could not. A couple of them just got tied up, and I just cut a hole in it. I was like, you know what? You can wear it around the house anyways.
So, I mean, but that was just something that just kind of stood out. Just finding the type of clothes that you get, like putting pants on them. Yeah. And I guess the problem that comes with why you have to really be cognizant of, where that G-tube is, because any wrong tug on it can pull it out.
Pop it right on out.
So that was just something that we dealt with early on. And then eventually, like when he got a little bit bigger, and he was already a preemie, so finding preemie clothes.
Lord have mercy. I should have known how to sew before this, and I just could have just made everything. It would have been easier. But.
And then the other problem, as Brittany kind of already alluded to, is when he started to get a little bit more active. Because generally, I mean, whenever he was eating, we would probably have him like on a boppy or holding him or something.
Or in this little, I don't know what you want to call it, a little activity thing where he could sit in. Or,
saucer?
Yeah. And, we can monitor. He may move around a little bit, but we can kind of follow him with the pole or in a designated area.
So we would always have his feeding bag, and it would be hooked on this pole, as you guys will see in this picture right here. But when he started getting a little bit more active and started moving around a lot, then we had to come up with some ways.
I'm not finna chase him with this bag.
Yeah, because that means
your personal assistant
walking right behind him with the pole.
Nah.
So, I mean, that was a little bit difficult. So what we eventually ended up doing was getting him a backpack.
Backpack.
So I remember.
Is that the first one we used? Was it the Spider-Man one?
Yes.
So that's what Grammy got him. His Grammy got him a backpack. Just somewhere she thought was cute. And it was a smaller backpack, but it was still big.
Matter of fact, go grab his backpack.
Which one?
The one that he has now. And I'll explain, like, with this original backpack that we got right here, you see him standing up. And I remember I just got tired of just following him around because, as Brittany stated, once he started crawling and going around our little ottoman, it would be very difficult to have to stay and walk around with him. So one time I just like, okay, let's just try this out. So I got his backpack, put his feeding pump in there in the feeding bag, and zipped it up, and he was good to go. But the problem with that backpack was it was too big for him, as Brittany said, because JJ was still a little guy.
I think didn't we try first the backpack that came with the pump, which was the black one?
Yep.
Okay. And then that one was kind of bigger too. Mm-hmm. And then, we got the little Spider-Man one, tried that one. But then we also learned too, that one didn't have a clip. And to keep the backpack on, we needed the clip.
So what I ended up doing is, once again, these Facebook groups. And
Jon was all in those.
Anything to be more efficient and to save us some headaches. So what some of the kids were doing, some kids had like this little, I don't know what this is called, like a little scooter that would be attached to them. And when they were crawling, they would kind of be pulling the little scooter around while they were eating.
That would make me nervous still, too, though.
With the little kids. Yeah. So other kids had these types of backpacks. Now, this is actually a backpack that has the little leash.
Y'all know the ones y'all be in the store, and y'all walk by and it be the baby kids and the parent be having to Where they yank them. So
Well,
this is
sometimes those are needed.
well, whatever. But
So as you'll see, it has the little buckle there.
and then this was the thing where the leash was. So I remember he brought it home. I was like, what are you doing with that? And then he's like, I'm taking the leash off or whatever to use the backpack. So I mean, it worked perfectly, and they're so cute. They have so many different designs.
Yeah.
The specific brand does too. They have a bunch of them.
Skip hop.
Skip hop.
So we just used this, and it kind of just secured around JJ's chest, as you guys will see in this picture. And he was mobile from then on out.
I think we thought when we first did it, because JJ was so fussy about everything.
Yes.
Everything you do to him, put on him, or whatever. And I told John, I was like, he is not going to wear that backpack. Like, he's not going to do it. He's going to be upset. And I think, in the beginning, he might have maybe whined a little bit, but we put it on him. He actually adapted to it very well. And so and he still to this day, you can do it whenever he's doing whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like
He puts
he's
his
used
arms
to it.
in and out. He'll buckle it himself.
Yeah, it's like it's nothing. Doesn't bother him at all.
Yep.
Thank the Lord.
We've kind of been talking about like his feeding pump. So this is his typical feeding bag. So what's this? It holds 500 mLs.
Are we talking about errors and stuff with the bags as well?
Yeah, we might as well. So this is his feeding pump. And his feeding pump kind of regulates the speed, the rate and the volume that he gets. So with JJ's condition, the short gut syndrome, you can't have the food going in too fast because then it'll just go right through him. So this feeding pumps allows us to set the rate. Whoops. The errors, as we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
So it allows us to set the rate and the dosage. So it'll give him like 400 mLs over 1 hour. So
whatever you said, like a microwave.
Yep, exactly. So
It's
I'm just doing some really simple math
Yeah.
to kind of figure
So
out.
that versus holding something and waiting for the food to go down.
It was a lot easier, and then it gives JJ his freedom to kind of move around. Now, with this feeding pump, even though it allows him to eat, we had our bouts with this one as well because we would
Probably like
get
our
a lot
20th
of those errors. Now, when we're connecting him, so we have the feeding bag, and we connect it to his G-tube extension here. So this is what locks into JJ's G-tube that's attached to him.
Mm-hmm.
So
And there's a little notch on the top, and that's what locks it. So you can put it in and then rotate it almost all the way around, and it will stop. But if they're lined up, that's how you take it out. But if it's lined up when you're trying to feed them, it will come out. So it has to be turned so that it doesn't line up.
yeah, this one's broken, or else I would show it. So it will connect straight to his feeding tube, and one thing that you would have to do is unclamp this little part. Now, sometimes and this has happened plenty of times for us, if you forget to unclamp it, the feeding pump will still run.
It's like in the beginning, it would always say, let us know. It's no flow is what it says. No flow means it's a kink, it's clamped, something's wrong, and it's not getting it through. So, but then I guess the pump maybe just got used to it. We would keep it clamped, which when it's clamped, it's not flowing through. And the pump would read as if it's feeding him. So it's not giving any errors, you're not going to look at it.
Right.
So it would go through his entire feed, and then at the end, beep when it says it's done, and then we pull the bag out.
Bag, like, this thing's still full.
The bag is full of milk. There's no way he got that full feed, and then we see that it's clamped. So the first time it did that, I was like, I'll be darned. I didn't even know it could do that.
Then you have to do the whole feed
all over again. So that was just an hour or 45 minutes, however long he's eating at that time, wasted.
And then that throws off your schedule because once again, he was eating like every 3.5, 4 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Now, we also talked about, Brittany was talking about like a lot of the errors, like especially like when he was having his overnight feeds, those would go from like 11 o'clock p.m. to 6 in the morning. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about those.
I didn't. So
oh my
what would
God.
happen is sometimes you get those errors at 2 o'clock in the morning.
And you hear beep, beep.
So you have to get up and then find out what the error is. Then hopefully go right back to sleep. We had the extension, like I said, can deflate. That's the other major problem that we have. So if there's a really like a needle size hole in this, it'll slowly start leaking and that balloon will start to deflate. And then eventually, as we said, when it deflates all the way, it just pops right out of him.
Or you think you've connected him and it was in there, but it wasn't really in there. And then you get what we call feed the bed.
Yeah.
You can feed anything. You can feed the car seat. Done it. The bed. The
I
couch.
think the bed is the worst because, as Brittany
You
was saying,
you don't know.
Yeah, it's going for 8 hours overnight, and those are some long feeds too.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that.
Yeah, so we fed the bed tons
And
of
then you wake up and he didn't have that whole night feed and has not gotten any of that food.
Yeah, makes you feel like a bad parent. The first
JJ
time.
doesn't know any better. He doesn't know if he's hungry or not hungry.
Yeah.
So,
But that's happened multiple times. It can even be like everything's fine with the pump, but maybe he just turned over in his sleep and he pulled on his extension.
and he's soaking wet and he's been laying in it all night because he's getting some good sleep, I guess, and didn't recognize that he was wet. And you just walk in and you just gotta just take a moment. You just stand there and just look at it.
Yeah.
And then you yell for the other person that you need help.
Yep.
So that you can get them up, get them washed up, get the bed changed, get another feed ready. And that really messes up the whole day because you can't account for, was it 8 hours, 6 hours?
Yeah, that
worth of food.
That was tough. So that's happened plenty of times, and we talked, as Brittany mentioned, in the car. Sometimes it can come out.
This just happened, last month?
Yeah.
For me.
For you. Yeah.
I had to leave a little piece out there. But,
right, but yeah.
That happened to me on the way traveling back home, is that I could have sworn that I connected him, done it a million times. And usually if something happens where the food is spilling out, you can smell it. Mm. It has a smell. It's green beans, and it's a mixture of a formula. So you can usually smell it. I didn't smell anything. JJ's back there on his iPad, chilling, making noise. I'm like, okay, so we're good. We get home, or not even all the way home, and I look back, and I can see the food on him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, please tell me it all didn't come out. And yeah, he didn't get any of it, and it was oh my gosh.
Yeah, matter of fact, if we probably sit up, I know it's spilt on his couch.
Yeah, as I came home, he was like, oh yeah, JJ got some of his food on your couch. I'm like, dang.
But another thing that kind of brings me to this, when he gets his medicine, there's a little part on his extension that the med, because he gets the syringes that go through.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes you might think that this thing is closed all the way, and it's not.
And the food is just spilling out the little hole, this little spout. I'm a little teapot, just spilling all out.
So then, some will be coming out of, he'll actually be getting some of the feed, but most of it's going to be going through the med port.
Oh my God. Yeah, we've caught so many L's doing this for 4 years.
So, we talked about, his G-tube coming out, and the first time it came out, I remember when we left the hospital, they were telling you, not if it comes out, but when it comes out, what to do and to make sure you're pretty prepared. Because they said it's inevitable. Mm. And I remember, I don't know how long we went when we got home before it actually came out.
I thought it was a while.
Maybe a couple of months. But the first time JJ's G-tube came out, I remember, and I was surprised how we handled it, because we handled it really well. We were both pretty calm. Brittany called you called the nurse's hotline.
We had a hotline.
I called the
hotline number.
And I was walking you through how to put this back in.
Well, why I gotta be the one to do surgery?
So Brittany was working on putting it in, and she just couldn't get it to go in.
So at this point, JJ's the hole now where it goes into is pretty loose. You can stick it right in there. JJ don't feel it. But at this point, he was kind of feeling it. And so when it's out, it's an open hole. You can't really see really much, but it's an open hole in his tummy. So, and it's kind of a tighter hole. So to put that in there, it's not just like bloop. You have to work it in there. And the more I was doing it, and JJ's moving, I just couldn't. I was like, I can't get it in. I can't do it. Y'all like, you gotta be gentle. He's like, gotta be a little more aggressive. I can't do it.
So I just went over there and popped it right in.
We tag teamed.
Brittany handed me the syringe,
I can't do it. My baby's crying. I can't.
And that was it. So, once it came out that first time, we've been pretty good ever since. And it comes out not as often as
we haven't. Jinx knock on this pillow.
But it's happened. And that's one of the things and why it's kind of difficult to find people to kind of watch JJ at times, because that's always a risk that you run, is that G-tube coming out.
And it's happened.
Yep.
With my mom. Has it happened with his godparents?
I don't think so. It happened with my mom.
Did it?
Yeah. Luckily, I was like 5 minutes away. But
Oh, okay. And then if somebody is uncomfortable, the only thing you can tell them to do is grab something, cover his stomach, so all the contents aren't spilling out. And like, if you don't feel comfortable, like I'll be on the way as soon as I can get there.
Yeah.
But we had to coach my mom through it, and she's like, okay, okay. I'm like, it's okay, ma. You know, telling him, but you know, you're just worried about hurting him and
And that's, I
whatnot.
think, what everybody's just afraid of is
Worried about
hurting him.
hurting him.
So, but it doesn't bother him really at all. And
Well, now it don't. You don't even feel it
no,
now.
even back then, like I remember when we were giving run through for the daycare, he was just laughing as we were putting it back in.
It happened a couple times at the daycare too.
So that's just
Yeah.
something that we like our first time with that G2 coming
We
out.
can laugh about it now, but it don't be funny when it would actually be happening.
So I mean that kind of transitions us to one of the other difficult parts of having that G-tube is finding people who feel comfortable watching JJ. Everybody loves JJ, but once again,
Like you
it's
want to watch him? It's like, ooh.
It's just
And
a lot
then
that comes
our
with it.
parents, his godparents, John's mom. You know, some people, you get asked, but it's really not an option. Like you're his loved ones, you want to keep him and watch him. So we're going to go through our tutorial, our training session. And
But
so
what I will say is that everybody who has watched them has done a great job with them. Like, I believe Josh and Steph were the first ones to watch them down there in Macomb.
The Crockett's.
And like, well, Steph was already in the medical field, so that was nothing for her.
Like, yeah, we show them a couple times. You do this, this goes here. Okay, yeah, we got it. And once you see it and you've done it even a couple times, you feel a lot more comfortable,
Right.
and it's not as bad as what it looks like.
And that was a relief for us as parents to be able to kind of get out and be able to leave your kid with somebody that's comfortable with connecting him for his feeds. So I know that was huge for us. We're just
We didn't
really
do it
grateful.
often, but the few times that we did.
Yeah. So I know like in Macomb, like I said, Josh and Steph were like our main go-to people. Very familiar, very comfortable with
I
it.
think Brandy and them watching before.
Yeah, they watched. I
Brandy
don't know if they
Jarrell.
ever had to connect them though,
I don't know.
but they wouldn't care either.
Yeah.
So
I was like, oh yeah, we got it.
yeah, and then of course Brittany's parents, real comfortable with it. Her brother.
Oh yeah, my brother. Yeah.
Yep. I know my mom's had JJ down here, and one thing is we appreciate it. People take some thorough notes.
Oh, my mom would make me write out. I need to know what time he eats, how much it is, what this and this. She wanted me like to literally write it out, and then we had to go over it like an actual assignment every single time he would stay.
Yep. So my mom's the same way. So just very detail oriented because, and I appreciate that because they just want to make sure that, they're doing the best for JJ. So, I mean, another difficult thing outside of just finding some babysitters to watch JJ if we have something to do, but was also finding, daycare for him when you went back to work and I worked as well. So we were blessed to have in-house nursing for a little over a year and a half.
I thought it was longer than that. Okay.
Maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And I mean, our nurses were amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to have a whole separate episode about like finding childcare when you have a kid with special needs. But just to kind of touch on it really briefly is like, finding a daycare that was comfortable, once again, with JJ's feeding tube and getting him attached for his feeds. And I remember, what was it? So when we eventually decided to put him in daycare because we lost our nursing.
Yeah.
And
So I mean, I think it was over. That's why I think it was about 2 years or so. JJ hadn't been in like any interactive type of things as far as daycares or schools or anything. So I mean, he stayed out of that for a while, which was
Right.
kind of good too because his immune system was not ready
Yeah.
for what he was about to face with those kids.
So I remember when after we kind of lost our nursing, so we were looking for a daycare and we came across the YMCA daycare down there in Macomb. And I can't say how amazing they were.
I was real nervous in the beginning. I was like, I don't know about this. I was like, I know he has to get there eventually and be able to do things like this, but I mean, it's just nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but from day one, everybody was so hands-on and so eager to learn. And like the director, she kind of spearheaded everything.
Yeah.
And it just, once again, provided us with a level of comfort knowing that our son's somewhere and he's being taken care of. And every time something would come up, she would call, let us know, like,
Yeah.
oh, we got it taken care of. This is what happened. But we were able to, kind of rectify the situation.
Yeah, we didn't know
So,
how that was gonna play out.
yeah.
Once looking for care, I was like, I mean, this could be. I mean, they could turn us away if they don't feel comfortable. They would that'd be in their right to do that. We don't have the right, staff to do that, or we can't accommodate that. So we were very blessed.
So we were blessed to have that in Macomb. But when we moved up here to Dixon, we had JJ in daycare for
3 weeks.
probably 2 or 3 weeks, yeah. But that situation didn't turn out as well as it did in Macomb for us. And so they weren't as attentive to JJ's needs. Or I guess I understand why.
They said they weren't able to accommodate his needs, but I didn't think that it wasn't enough time, I think, to really try. And because we had seen that it was doable and able to be done from the YMCA, I mean, it wasn't overnight, but that they were willing to. And I think that was a thing. And they might have not, this place might have not had, enough people or the resources to be able to do that. And I guess I am glad, on the upside, that they were honest.
Yeah.
And brought that to the forefront versus our child being there and being neglected or whatever else going on. And
And it wasn't that he was going to be getting neglected, but I think when we were at the Y, there were so many more people that was directly involved. So like I said, the director, she was, if anything happened with JJ, she's right there.
I mean, for the longest, she was the only one that would do his feeds. So she'd have a time schedule. This time, she'd go get his food, and then she'd go start it, and she'd stop it. And then I think as time went on, some of the main instructors in the classes would start doing it. But she did it, for the longest.
And up here in Dixon, the daycare had a lot more kids, larger rooms, so
not as many teachers in there. Yeah.
So I can understand it, why we had to pull them out, but that still is an uneasy feeling as a parent. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was just kind of tough to go through.
And then moving in a new place to where you're trying that out and it doesn't work. Like, okay, well, that's not going to work. We have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still an hour away from our families, and I mean, at the time, his mom just retired, but she was working. I mean, my parents work, so I mean, it was trying to figure out what we were going to do in place of that now. So it was a little bit frustrating with everything new for us at the time.
But right now we have an amazing person who watches JJ
The
as
Lord
well.
always provides.
So I mean, it worked out. So I mean, like as we kind of wrap this up because we don't want it to be too long. When you think about adapting to life with the G-tube, for any parents out there who have a kid with the G-tube or are getting ready to go on that G-tube journey, the one thing that I can't stress enough is to get in some of these Facebook groups, because you kind of learn the best practices per se of how parents are actually dealing with kids with G-tubes. As I mentioned, that's where I found out about the G-tube pads. That's where I found out about the backpacks. We learned some tricks for even priming his feed pump, things like that. And even like for JJ with that G-tube, we mentioned in the previous episode finding about that Plexiderm. So when he would take his bath, so that we make sure that the water didn't get into it, or when we actually started taking him to the swimming pool, we made sure that that's kind of kept his G-tube protected, kept it, completely dry.
When he had his swimming classes.
Yeah, I'll have a picture up of that too.
So cute. Yeah, like I said, Jon spearheaded a lot more of that. I mean, just be aware too when you're in those groups, you see a lot of other stuff too. So Jon really wanted me to do more and be a part in those groups. But sometimes, I mean, people are on there literally asking for help. This is happening to my child. Has anybody else had this before? And some of the stuff on there, I mean, it's gruesome, and a lot of the stuff on there is hard to see or read. And so, Jon being a little more tougher skin with that.
Let me even piggyback, because there's some days, and that's a really good point that you brought up. Like, as helpful as they are, it also shows the reality a lot of times of some of the situations that people are in. And I know the same for Brittany and for me. like that stuff kind of breaks your heart when you see like these little
Yeah.
kids that are going through some of these life-threatening illnesses, and you know,
A lot more severe cases than yours.
yeah,
And just seeing things that are similar, and you pray that that doesn't happen to your child, or it's just, it really is, it's kind of like Facebook, where regular Facebook, where people say, where it serves a good purpose, and it has its benefits, and pros and cons.
right.
It's kind of like the same thing. It serves a purpose where it's a community of like-minded people have situations that can help each other to lean on. I mean, there are people in there that are really leaning for some support. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing to kind of keep in mind as well. So, what are some of the things that you did? Like, what were some of the ways that you kind of adapted, per se?
I'm just doing it. Trial and error. You learn a lot of things from things going wrong. You learn a lot of lessons, and then better ways to do things. If it's not working out this way, you try something else. So even though getting a lot of information from those sites, from other people, we learned a lot, probably the most by trial and error.
I remember going to like a Toys R Us or like a Walmart or something, and you found like this little clip to put on the stroller to attach.
I think it was like a bike clip,
Yep.
like a little harness clip or whatever. So I mean, you get very innovative, and we did that to put on the stroller to hold his feed bag, because it has to be, that's another thing too. If the bag is tipped or anything, it's not going to feed through, and then you have gaps. You don't want air gaps, because that causes belly issues, gas, and different things, upsets tummy. So the clip put on the stroller, hook the bag up, let him feed. I can't think of really any other hacks. Oh, we always had hacks like in the car, how to put the cord, and then like when he got to a certain age to where he wanted to start messing with the cord in the back seat, and you're driving, you peek back there, and you tell him not to touch it. So we had to trail it up above the car seat and let it go down. And I mean, it's just like I said, trial and error.
Yep.
Trial and error.
I mean, it really is a lot of trial and error, and
we've come a long way with that
G2.
G2.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then sometimes it's just about being very thorough and being prepared. I remember when we were packing up for our first trip with JJ, going from Macomb, and we were staying in Rockford for a weekend. So this was our first time going with him being home, and we forgot his pump charger. So, and from Macomb
feed with a dead pump.
From Macomb to Rockford's a 3-hour drive, and we were already in Rockford when we found out that we didn't have. No, I think we were on our way to Rockford, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to turn around. And there's tons of little medical stores up there. We'll be able to just stop by and pick one up. Come to find out that no places had them. And I remember that night, and we were kind of freaking out. I went to 3 different hospitals up there in Rockford, and nobody had the pump charger. And we just happened to call
What was that, a supply store?
a medical supply store. And I had left a message on their voicemail. And I think either they called me back or I called them back the next morning when they opened.
I don't even think they had one.
Yeah.
They said you can come and look, and we might be able to, but they was like, it's an older pump. You don't really use that cord for any other type of
and it's not
electronics. It's like for that specifically. Yeah, it's like a prong, a waved prong. Like you don't, if you had a charger, you can use that from something else that has a computer or something like that. This matches nothing.
Nothing else. So, I mean, you're not going to Walmart and getting a charger for this feeding pump.
All.
So, luckily they had it, and we were able to charge this feeding pump. But there's been other times, and now we actually have a spare.
And remember, it was a random one. Like they don't know what it went to, why they had it. It was just there, so it didn't even have a price on it. I mean, it just happened to be there, the only one.
Yeah.
That's God for you.
Facts. So
lesson learned. we had a spare now, and we.
So yeah, we keep a spare in the car. Yeah, at all times, just because once again, you just never know. And I mean, there's been times, even like with the feeding pump, where we forgot some of his formula when we were traveling, and you don't have enough to make his formula.
I think one day you drove back home. And...
I did. Yeah. So we've had
trying to do stuff in Rockford or hang out or whatever events we had going on, whatever. But literally, yeah, it's going to happen, And I would say just handle it with step back, take a moment, gather yourself, because it can be very frustrating,
It is.
and you don't want to take it out on the baby
Or your partner.
or your partner.
And that's one of the things that really stood out that time when we forgot his charger for the first time. Neither one of us like blamed the other person for it. Like, why didn't you pack it? Well, you were the one packing the diaper bag. So that helped to make that stressful situation a little bit
It's like,
less
what can we do?
stressful.
Who can we call? You know, what can we do to fix this? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like I said, we're still. I mean, it still happens. You know,
Yeah.
where you might forget something or anything.
My mom, now we go to Rockford, she's like, you got your pump? She tried to go off, we got everything, Mom, we good.
And luckily, like now, we're only like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So if anything did happen, we could just turn right back around.
Go on.
But where we're at now with this feeding pump is it's got to go. You know,
Yeah,
with the
JJ
feeding
has
tube,
had it
so-
for, he's been a little bit dependent on it. Like I said, we thought it was a short-term thing. We'll work on food at home and we'll get rid of it. It'll just be as simple as that. It has not been simple at all.
And as we'll talk about in our very next episode, which is going to be focusing solely on JJ's feeding challenges.
JJ played games.
Yeah, it's not linear, so there's no straight path. With JJ, it goes up and down, backwards, side to side, all different types of ways. So he can get rid of that feeding tube once he decides to eat.
It's solely up to him.
But one of the problems is with being fed every 3.5 hours constantly, he doesn't really know what it's like to be hungry.
Yeah.
With him being at such a young age and always kind of all he's known is
That's
having
all
his
he
feeding
knows,
tube.
yeah.
It's kind of hard for him to even understand the purpose of food.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we'll talk about that in our next episode, solely dedicated to feeding, and yeah, that was gonna.
Whole another level of stress.
Oh yeah. So that's it. So as always, like if you are getting ready to go on that feeding journey, or if you have any questions about some of the things that we've done, or any tips, feel free to reach out to us. As we always say, we're pretty much an open book with our journey, and anything that has helped us that can help somebody else, we definitely want to pass that along. I know one of our good friends said when they came in to visit us at the apple orchard, and they saw JJ had his little
Sterling.
feeding backpack, so they said that they went and got one for their daughter who had a G2.
We learned all the cool hacks from you guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to do it for episode 4. So we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you for watching.